My name is Bill Burt. I'm the Vice Principal of Curriculum Instruction. It's wonderful to see a lot of familiar faces out there and some new faces as well. I work very closely with the counseling department, and I'm really pleased to see what they're going to share with you tonight. And quite frankly, there's a lot to share, but all good stuff. Next year is a very important year for your students, and our team is very well prepared to help them navigate that year. So tonight, you're going to hear about some of the ways that Bellarmine is supporting your students as they navigate the college search process, as well as things you can do to help support them at home. Some of this information is going to be new to you, and some of it, for some of you, might be stuff that you're already very, very familiar with. I'd also like to share some counseling personnel news. Mrs. Irving, who's been here for 7 or 8 years, and her family are actually moving out of the area this summer. So we will be hiring a new counselor. We're already in the process of that. So we have been interviewing replacements. We're pleased with the very, very strong candidates who are familiar with Bellarmine and our shared values. So I'm excited to see what they're going to bring to the department. So we will be introducing this new counselor later this spring. And we have a very robust onboarding process to help them as well. So again, thank you for being here this evening. I hope you take a lot from tonight. I want you just to sit back and relax, and I'm going to turn it over to our team. But again, thank you for being here tonight. Mrs. Keene.
All right, well, welcome parents. I am Katie Keene, as you heard, one of the counselors here at Bellarmine, if I haven't had a chance to meet you. We all get passionately excited when we get to see these young people reaching their potential. And so for many, that next step after high school is college. For some others, it might be tech school or community college, it might be a trades program. We want to have this conversation today so you can feel equipped to help your student to successfully get through this college application process in a way that allows your family to not only survive it, but to thrive. So imagine for a moment, just go with me on this. Someone were to offer you a plane ticket or a helicopter ride ticket. So if you choose the plane ticket, your focus will naturally be all about where you're going. The destination is king, right? In this plane, you're surrounded by people singularly focused on getting to a destination very quickly. And maybe they're going to a wedding, vacation, job, but everyone has a precise endpoint in mind. So as a result, delays are annoying, and if they ask you to give up your seat, you might feel panic or be adamant that you're staying on this flight. So by the time you've landed, you remember all the things that annoyed you, like the poor snack selection or how someone fell asleep beside you and you couldn't use the restroom, or the scary turbulence. But if you choose the helicopter tour, you lift straight up off the ground with a little effort, and you're quickly airborne, and your focus now is not where you're headed, because you know you're going to end up right in the same spot when you return. The point of the ride is not to get somewhere, but instead to see, to learn, explore, and appreciate the sights. So you land feeling like you gained a new perspective. So the same is true of the college application process. I told you to come back. It's not intended to be this direct flight, and we think too many people expect the college search experience to be a plane ride, right? They have one specific destination in mind, and our hope is that you begin to view it as a helicopter tour. And your goal is to look beyond what you see, to rise up rather than barrel down that runway, and to spend your time excited learning rather than being anxious or just trying to control all these details. The college application process is best addressed with hope, filled with possibility and joy, and not fear. So for those that know Philippians 4:6, it says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus." So I think sometimes we just need to be reminded of that. The college application process is not a passive process, but we can start by internalizing that it really truly will all work out. So as you embark on this journey, just maybe suspend your preconceived notions about where the right school is, and just open your mind to the countless number of incredible options out there for your student. I think you're going to be amazed at the possibilities that you'll discover. So let me ask you, how many colleges and universities are in the US, do you guess? Including all the private, public, community college, technical college, etc., everything. And some are going with D? Yep, okay. Now, approximately how many four-year colleges and universities are in the US? Anyone have suggested guess you're prone to? You can turn to your neighbor and tell them. You'd rather not blurt it out. And approximately how many four-year colleges and universities admit less than 33% of their applications? Maybe turn to your neighbor and tell them what you think about the number of colleges we have in America. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, there's 4,000 colleges of all types in the US. And there's 2,700 colleges that are four-year universities in the US. So now in question 3, you might have overestimated your answer. I don't know. There are only 100 highly selective admissions that let in less than 33% of their applicants. Okay, so in fact, you might be surprised to learn that actually less than 65 of those 100 are an acceptance rate of 20% or less. So not that many, right? So what does that mean for you? It means that the most schools are simply looking to admit and enroll these good students that we have. So getting into most colleges and universities around our country is not the real challenge for students who are doing well in high school, particularly here at Bellarmine. It underscores the fact that there are hundreds of academically excellent and affordable colleges looking to enroll our talented students. So despite the narrative that it's increasingly difficult to get into colleges post the COVID pandemic, we want to emphasize that the average acceptance rate at four-year colleges remains consistently at 60%. If that makes you feel a little bit better, I hope it does. For aspiring to those certain schools that are more elite and selective, it really comes down to economics, supply and demand, right? Phenomenally talented students from across the world are applying to those similar subset of schools with a relatively fixed undergraduate population size. Okay. So as we take a look at these questions, will artificial intelligence play a greater role in the admission process? Will the cost of college and the financial aid landscape look different? And will the U.S. Department of Justice or courts of law here or abroad dictate policy changes in how they access applicants? The answer is yes. Yes, they will. There are many things that we do not have in our control. But we can also conclude that the college landscape is continually changing. It is a big business after all. So there are some myths that I would like to refute, and these are the claims that you might hear about, right? That there's a secret formula, or that there's a specific number of extracurricular activities that you need to know, or there's going to be a winning essay that you must mirror or have designed for you or by someone. There's tips and tricks that they will offer. But I will tell you that these claims are not fully true. Our perspective is that no one can ensure your student a spot in a selective college. Our intention is to help guide you through this process, to help your family with a healthier perspective and a solid structure for going through this process together. What we do know, and it's been demonstrated by our admissions teams that we meet with in the area and all over across the nation, is that we know our students are holistically reviewed through this process. If you recall our former training that we had, we went over with the PLU representative, and she said the treat. It's the transcript, recommendation, essay, application, and test scores all combined that make for your student's application process to be reviewed. All components. The majority of us already recognize from looking at this and hearing other presentations how important the transcript, the essay, and the application are. But sometimes we know that admissions will be based on their undergraduate admission goals. So if there's an institutional fit or a match that they're trying to follow, for example, if they get an endowment for $20 million to the chemistry program and they expect to see females increase in the chemistry program, the admission process is going to look at that select group of students who are applying particularly with a chemistry interest, and they're going to lean in that direction. There's also geographic regions. So sometimes we know that states have a requirement imposed by them that says, like for example, South Carolina is required to have an 80% South Carolina resident applicants. So there's limitations sometimes beyond our knowledge that are going on behind the scenes that we want to just recognize exist. There's also the direct entry programs, so there's going to be limited seats in some of the more competitive programs that our students apply to. But I can help you take a look at how many great colleges our students here at Bellarmine do get accepted to, even though those circumstances exist. So the class of 2024 gained admission to over 250 great colleges, and I couldn't even get them all on this screen. If you'll take a look at those. I ran out of room. There were so many more. So the idea here of us gathering tonight is really to help you know and understand what the process is all about. Given your student has certain things that they've already been working on, either with you or with us at school, we're going to provide for you the summer to-do checklist, what the application plan is, and just how to add colleges to that list. So we've got a lot in store for you tonight. So far, I just want to emphasize that we have met with your junior students. I don't know if they've talked about that. There's just maybe a handful of students that we have yet to get into our offices to interview and to talk about this process and where they're at, what they would like to do in their next years to follow high school. So if you have one of those students, please encourage them to come in to see us, because we want to assure you we've met with the majority of them. We also have started them off with creating a Common App account, which is what our colleges will be using most predominantly for their application. And we've also taken the SAT likely here on campus if they chose to. We had a date here on campus in April to offer the digital test. So some of your students may have already done that, or perhaps they've signed up for one. If they have determined they're not testing, don't panic. There are other test dates if you want to insist that they do that, but it's also possible they can apply to test optional schools. Okay? And they've started the Common App essay. So here tonight with us, I want to invite Jacob Singer up because we have partnered with the English department as a counseling department to help navigate this process and begin it with your student.
Hello everyone. This is my 7th year teaching at Bellarmine, and I've only taught juniors and seniors, which means I've had a lot of experience working with people developing their Common App essay. And something that as individual instructors we've all done kind of on our own for the last couple of years, but this year was really good to collaborate as a professional learning community of junior instructors along with the counseling department to think about how could we create something that's systemic so that everyone who's coming through development is going to have a unified experience. Randy Linster and I really worked together to provide some resources so that your students have things like all the prompts. We looked at the New York Times list of kind of essays and started writing them in class. Our goal for this year was really kind of focus on them reviewing the prompts and thinking about what story they wanted to share about themselves. And Mom and Dad, I really want you to think about those moments you had in cars, on the ride home from a loss at the sporting event, or a really rough day at school, where you've been able to have a conversation with your child, and you feel like for a second there you got a real glimpse of their soul. That's kind of what we're trying to do, is we're trying to find a moment in 650 words where they can kind of put themselves out in a very kind of qualitative way, so that somebody gets an understanding of what makes them motivated. So at this point, all of the juniors have finished a first draft. Here are a couple of the prompts. These are kind of condensed versions. Again, if you're looking for the fully elaborated versions, you can go to the Common App website. But reviewing these, I've really allowed students to kind of find a story that they want to tell about themselves, that will paint a picture of who they are, kind of as a confident sophomore, not as an awkward freshman trying to find their way to the cafeteria, but what do they want to do besides do well in school? How are they going to bring something to the campus? I'll give you a second to move over some of these prompts. The biggest thing that we're really looking to kind of reframe are a couple of these different strategies. We want to grab the reader with an authentic narrative and a story. And one of the things that I think is so important is that we realize who's reading these essays, and that often they're sitting in a university administration room with a stack of 100 essays. How can your child's story stand out? And I don't think that comes down to poetics or a big sob story. When you walk into any classroom on Bellarmine or any high school and you look in a room, you're going to see a group of 20 complete individuals. They are looking different, they dress different, and they are totally different people. The question is, how can we use language to put that unique feature forward so that they can show themselves to a stranger in a productive way? We want them to reveal qualities in a humble way. As much as we've had very meaningful experiences doing service work at Bellarmine, I don't think that always makes for a successful Common App essay because so many people write about it. So when we can start to recognize maybe cliche topics, we can start to recognize what to avoid in order to really engage our reader. And the biggest thing is maybe we're looking for things like, where have you taken a stumble? Where have you fallen? Been able to pick yourself back up and learn something. How can you show yourself as a resilient individual? And I also think it's so important that we keep in mind that there might be this impulse to pick up the pen and brag and talk about how we have perfect grades or how we're the captain of the team. But ultimately, when we think about our favorite movies, it's where the character is vulnerable. How can we show ourselves in a way that has kind of an emotional moment? I think sometimes that comes down to, again, having a little bit of a spill, if you will. And then this last idea, again, the content of the essay and themes should align with the rest of the application. Take an opportunity to share a unique story. Again, there's a lot of different approaches to writing this essay. And I think one of the biggest challenges is how can you do that in 650 words? And I think that the reality is that there's no way to encapsulate your student in that space. So how can you find some gem? How can you find some kind of little diamond in the rough there that you can polish and present? So again, a couple things that we've done so far. We've identified key traits to your individual students. We've reflected on their life, incorporated their passions, their motivations, and especially stuff that might not fit into school. Again, I always think about the idea of a college application being kind of quantitative. It's all about measurements. It's like, how tall are you? How much do you weigh? You get all these numbers. And what we're trying to do is use this story to show something qualitative. And then the final thing is, again, they've got their first draft. Now, I don't know if they're going to use this first draft to send out to any of the schools. I don't know if they're going to come back after summer and use that to revise their senior. But whether or not they have a product, they have a process now. They're far more comfortable with brainstorming, with telling a story instead of writing an argumentative essay. And I think with that confidence that they need to be able to replicate this, and we all know that there are a lot of supplemental essays that need to be completed for certain schools. And so again, they're walking away with a skill set, not just a product. Again, what are some options for your students over the summer to take what they've already generated to that next level? Well, first off, we have a summer college essay and resume course that we handled with Randy Lindstrom, who's one of my colleagues in the American Literature PLC and also teaches senior comp. So she's been doing this for a long time as well. In the fall, there will be happy hour Wednesdays with the counseling and a handful of us as English staff, where people can show up with their essays and we can work with them. Now, I'm going to say something, you guys, this is really important. We're not going to copy edit every one of your senior's essay. That's just not feasible on top of everything else. We have a designated time where we can meet with people and work with them. But it's really important that you understand that as English teachers, especially at the beginning of next year, we're going to be very busy. So we have a designated window. Please use these resources. I think one of the biggest things I sometimes see is we set aside time to do this work and nobody shows up. Again, this will be blasted out again in the fall. People will know about this. And then again, finally, in class, every senior instructor in the fall will dedicate some time in the first 6 weeks to learning how to really revise those Common App essays so that they have something that's polished. I'm going to hand it back to, I think, this
If you guys feel more confident having a guide or something in your hand to help students process through this essay, I found this really awesome book, Escape Essay Hell, and it lays it out. What's cool about the book is that it has a quickie description, and then it also will expand on that. So if your student is a quick learner, it's a thin book, really thin book. You could read it in less than probably 2 or 3 hours maybe, if you're processing. But it gives a quickie description and then it expands if your child needs it. There's just some great sequence of steps that might keep them on track through the summer if they want to revisit this essay. Also, Mr. Singer has provided a link that is right here for 177 college essay examples for 11 schools and expert analysis. I think the more students read other essays, the more inspired they're going to be more creative and write a great essay. You think yours is good, and then you start reading some of these other ones, and then the kids, I've seen it over and over in my office, they're like, oh, I got that, okay. We're going back to revise this. So really explore other people's essays. Helps make those little moments in your life come to mind. The other thing that there is a QR code for the college essay guide. He does provide services, but what I'm referencing here are not necessarily the services, but the free resources. So there's lots of guides and things within that to keep you guys propelling forward. So I'm going to invite Tawana Wilson up here. She's going to share the application process with us.
How are we doing? Okay, I see one thumbs up. Let's go ahead and do a quick pulse. Let's just check the room, okay? Give me a thumbs up if you're taking this in, you feel good about this, this feels doable. Give me a thumbs down if this is all very overwhelming and you have no idea what this process entails. And then give me a this if you're here and you're still trying to figure out how you feel. Okay. All right, I see a lot of thumbs up. Hopefully by the end though, we are all in the thumbs up range, okay? Because we know you guys have this. And we are here to help you with this process, okay? As well with your students. So rest assured, everyone just take a deep breath. You're okay, all right? So here's where we are with your students. Some solid summer college to-do list. You can find the summer assignments tile in My Bellarmine, and we will also email this out in July. But this is just a good place to find all the summer options that are available. We've been encouraging your juniors to start getting active if they haven't already, getting connected to things in their community, and to really start demonstrating service and leadership. And so there's a long list of things they can be doing. They can also check with us for other ideas, but we want them out there getting engaged. And then the college application plan is also on the tile on My Bellarmine as well. So the Common App. How many of us heard about the Common App? Familiar with the Common App? Great. Okay. So what is it? It's a streamlined college application system that allows your student to apply to multiple colleges at once. So once they create their account, they're going to do an in-depth background profile, education, a list of their activities, interests, and really just kind of list out their transcripts on this system. And then they will add in their colleges that they plan to apply to, and once they're ready, they'll complete the essay, any supplemental questions, and then they'll pay any application fees associated, and then hit submit. Okay? It's kind of a foolproof process for your student to apply to a number of schools all at one time. So it's really nice benefit for your students. Instead of having to go individually to different colleges, they can apply to all their colleges in one system. Important to note though, you can only apply to up to 20 colleges through this, okay? Students will create an account, like I mentioned, and we want them to utilize their My Bellarmine, their BPrep email, so that everything is connected with this system. Because we will later connect our college application system to the Common App. And then August 1st, they can start adding their schools. That's when they'll be considered an official senior at that point. And so they can start adding in their schools. But right now, they should have created an account, and they can start working on some of that background information in preparation for applications. The material they'll need is their unofficial transcript, which can be found in My Bellarmine. Under the Progress tab, a list of their activities, and if they've been utilizing the resume tool, they should have that all listed out. Any test scores they may have accumulated by now, contact information, essays, their personal statement will also be on this Common App account, and then any community additional statements. So not all colleges subscribe to the Common App, but a majority of them do. For colleges that may require a student to apply directly to their college, so just to keep a lookout when you're looking at or supporting your student when they're looking at different colleges, it might be beneficial for them to just apply directly to that college and not utilize the Common App. Sometimes colleges will have like a free application, sign up now, apply now, which is quick, takes like 10 minutes. Versus utilizing the Common App, which is a little bit more in-depth. And so, like I mentioned, with the Common App only allowing you to apply to 20 schools, you just want to look at your different options when you're planning to apply. And then, what is the application plan? So the application plan is a form that we use to help your students finalize their schools that they're planning to apply to. We have them rank their schools in order of interest. It's a binding contract between us and them so that we know the colleges that they're applying to, we know where to send transcripts, letters of rec, and that we've also had the chance to go through that list with them, make sure that their list has been informed, that they know where they're applying to, they've considered options, and allows us to kind of be a part of that process. And then a new form is required if they make any changes. Like we said, it's a contract. So this is our way of knowing where they're applying to. We are not able to read minds, okay? So if they decide later on, hey, I've added 2 or 3 more schools, we don't know that unless they tell us. And so it's important for them to update that form and update us so that we know where to send those additional documentation. Again, the application plan can be found on My Bellarmine under the counseling tile. It's under summer assignments, and in Naviance, it's under document resources. So this is a look at what the application looks like. The application plan is due at the time of your student's senior meeting. So all students are required, just like they did with the junior meeting, to have a senior meeting with us that will take place 1 month before their earliest deadline. So that's why we have them complete this application plan. They will have their schools listed. They will know what those application deadlines look like. They will know if they're utilizing the Common App or not, or if they're applying directly. They'll know how many essays their schools require. They'll know how many letters of rec each school requires, and if they're submitting test scores or not. So this has them do a very thorough, in-depth look at their colleges so that they know how they're applying and they have a clear plan of how they're doing that. And then we are able to support them in that. And so again, they're welcome to make different choices or add or subtract schools. It's just important that they inform us. And so we will review this together with them at that senior meeting 1 month before their earliest deadline. So choosing colleges, how are they completing this application plan? As you may have noticed on the application plan, there is room for 9 schools. If your student is applying to more than 9 schools, then they would just complete a second form. It's up to your student and you as a family to decide how many schools your student is going to apply to. We support your student in that. We've had students who apply to as little as 3 schools. They have a strategic plan. They know why they're applying to these schools. There's a rhyme and reason to that plan, and so we talk about that. And then we have students who apply to as many as 24 schools, okay? They want to cast a wide net, and there's a reason for that too, okay? But also keep in mind, you have to apply to those schools, keep those schools organized, utilize those application fees, all right, parents? And then also have to be able to make those decisions once you start getting acceptances. So, you know, there's different variations of how students apply, but we want to support them in that decision. And so target list should be a maximum of 9. We feel like that's a good range of some good reach schools, a couple of safety schools, a couple of baby schools that your student might be undecided about but wants to apply to and see what kind of offers they get back. So 9 is a good range. And then it's important to have a good mix, like I mentioned. So some schools that you feel like are good target schools for your student that based on just GPA, maybe test scores that you're looking at, you've looked at the data interest for that school and you think this is a good target school for my student. Just based on the statistic numbers, my student has a likelihood of getting in, okay? That would be like a safety school. And then you have your reach schools. These are your schools that just are highly selective. All right, Mrs. King talked about the very small number of schools that are hard to get into just by admission rates, where they have a percentage of 20% or less, okay? Those schools are reaches just for a reason, all right? But your student might still want to apply. They've looked at their options and they feel like they're a good candidate for that school. We want to encourage them to still apply to those schools, but we also want your student to be aware that it's a reach school, okay? And then a couple maybe schools. These are the schools that, you know, you think on paper I really am interested in. They might have a program that I'm considering, I'm just not sure. But maybe if I apply and they offer me a nice scholarship package, that school becomes more appealing, okay? And so those might be the schools that are just maybes. And then ways to apply. And so we've reviewed this with your students, but just for your own information, just a quick rundown about how you apply to schools and the ways you can do that. Early decision, this is a binding contract. That means if I'm applying early decision and if I am accepted by that university, I'm going there. I'm telling this school that if you let me in, I'm coming there. Okay, so this is a binding contract. You usually can only choose one school this way. A lot of schools have different stipulations on how you apply, so make sure you're reading the fine print about that. But typically for early decision, you're usually only choosing one school to apply early this way. And then this deadline is one of your earlier deadlines, so that's going to be generally November 1st. We're also starting to see applications, deadlines for early decision and early action as early as October 15th. Okay, so just be mindful of that. And then early action. This is a non-binding application. So you'll see a lot of students choose to use early action for a school that they're really excited about. They feel that this is a school that they're on target for. They probably dream about this school, and so they really want to apply early so that they can be considered early for this university. They feel like their academics are on target for this school. These are usually your high-achieving students who are going for their target schools and want to be considered early for those schools. The benefit of that is that it's non-binding, so there's no downside to it. You just have to have your application in early. You get to be considered early for that school, and usually these students are hearing back from these colleges before we're even going on winter break. So that's nice to actually have a school down that you know you've been accepted to as you're still working on your other applications, okay? And generally, we know these students or these colleges are looking to give out the majority of their merit offerings to those early action students because they know that these are their high achieving students who are excited about coming in. Again, these are going to be your earlier deadlines. They're going to be typically early October, November. And then regular decision. This is going to be a regular deadline. It's not binding. There's no stipulations to it. It's just going to be the hard deadline that a school has to have your application in. And by this date, or they're not going to consider it. These are typically later deadlines. But just an FYI for Bellarmine purposes, we always are having our students apply earlier than the latest deadline. So you'll see some universities have deadlines as late as February. We are already encouraging our students to apply before we go on winter break. So most, if not all, our students have applied to the majority of their colleges before December. And then lastly is rolling. This is just an ongoing deadline. That means there is no hard cutoff. If the school has a rolling deadline, they are continuing to accept applications as they come, and they review them on an individual basis, and then we'll let you know about your admission offer, okay? And so that's an open date. So if the school has that, you're free to apply at your will. All right. And then Naviance. Okay. So did anybody get onto School Links? Just by a show of hands. Did you guys check out School Links? A few of you, okay. Well, if you remember, we tried out School Links. It was another college search engine that we checked out, and it didn't really meet all our needs. And so if you remember, we were with Naviance for a number of years prior to this. And so just like a relationship, we got out of with Naviance. We dated around, and we went back to Naviance. Naviance did the work. They did their therapy. We got it together. They did some updates, and now we're trying to back out. I'm just joking. But no, Naviance has really did some updates that we're fond of. They have been tried and true to us in the past, but there was just some things we felt like they needed to work on, and so now they've done those things. And we're excited to be back with them. It's a familiar system for us. The students are familiar with it. And so, just FYI, we are now back fully on Naviance. As freshmen, your students were enrolled in Naviance, and you as well. And so you still have your login information, which is whatever email you were enrolled in on Blackboard. And if you remember your password, that's still active and ready to go as well. So you're free to get back onto Naviance, support your students with their college search through Naviance, and then as well track your own interests through your own application login. If you need a reset, you can reach out to us and we can reset your password for that. But just a reminder that Naviance is our college and career readiness platform. Students and parents have access to it. You can discover more about your personality. There's assessments, there's different tools, there's a resume builder on there. Students can explore and then start their college planning, and then they can start managing their college process. And then as they come back as seniors, we also utilize Naviance to connect to their Common App. And so that's how they will apply to their colleges through the Common App, and we can track that through Naviance. Okay. So how's the favorite schools in Naviance? So we're encouraging students to create their final list, learn how to select your interest level for each college in the fall with your counselor. And there's a demo that we're going to watch. Oh, when they log in. Okay. And then when you log in, there is a demo that will take you through all the features and the tools so that you can get familiar with this database. All right, so now I'm going to pass it on to Mrs. King for standardized testing.
Just also add, if you want us to guide you through that Naviance process of favoriting, you can linger a little longer at the end and we can demonstrate that for you. But rather than take up that time right now, we'll move forward. I don't believe so. That's a great link to put in there though. Yeah, no, we have, it's not through My Bellarmine. You would actually log in. I believe your handout, there's specific directions that you'll be able to follow too. I included in there the website as well as the steps for you, if you'll go through the stapled one. So we know now the updated number, according to fairtest.org, that there are 2,000 plus test optional or blind schools. So not all colleges require testing. We've encouraged you to have your child test to make sure that they have that score in case they do apply to a school that does require a test. So you are also encouraged, if you haven't already, to have test prep behind you to increase those scores. Those standardized tests are not easy, we know that. Far and few between do really well on them. So if you get back a score or have seen your score from the previous test that we did in April and you aren't satisfied, there is super scoring. So you can continue on that process of prepping and then retesting, and then they'll take the best score from each section and combine them to call it the super score if your schools that are on your students list require that. We do have more opportunities coming for testing. The only one on campus here will be in the fall. We'll be doing that in October. So that would be like the latest option I would ever encourage someone to test. There are other options that you can find on collegeboard.org as well as UCT's website. Because there is a little break in the summer and test sites load up quickly, you'll want to get on that ASAP, like do not delay. I've been telling students since we've been meeting with them that we need to get on there and register. You always have to register 5 weeks in advance. Otherwise, there's a late fee if they can get you in, but I do know students are having to travel a little further the later we go to get into a test site. Yes, question?
So will you offer that to the test here at Bellarmine in the fall? Will you offer that only to Bellarmine students, or how do they, because they are full, like my daughter barely got into a test in Arlington, but they're full. And
Yeah, they are definitely full. We stopped hosting our weekend dates because they were getting maxed out and full and not with our Bellarmine students most typically. So we now offer the in-school testing, and that is only going to be to our Bellarmine students to secure that they can test. They'll be testing on site here Tuesday, October 8th, I believe. But the thing about the testing is that you will have this time lapse before you get your scores. And those scores need to be submitted to the colleges by the application deadline. And so typically they will maybe make claims of about 2 weeks. Last year, it was a crisis. There were a lot of parents that were upset. It did not produce the result in 2 weeks. I think it could have been, November 23rd-ish when they got scores back. They had a glitch in their system. So when they were scanning the reports, it created a separate account, which then the students didn't have access to their score report. So we had to go through a process with them online to get them to merge the accounts. It was a process. That doesn't happen every year. That was a rarity, but just in case something like that were to happen, we really encourage the earlier test dates. Keep in mind, I believe there's a month where they do not offer testing at all. They're kind of resetting their system. So you can go on their websites and look for those, or bank on our October 8th one. Now, test prep, I mentioned, we have a handout. There's lots of different ways to test prep. We have organizations that we partner with and we recommend, they've been with us for a long time, to meet every learner's needs. So there's all different types of test prep. There's individualized, there's group, there's boot camp, there's books, online resources, anything will help, for sure. And it's just a price, there's a different varying price for every type of option. We have Mimi back here somewhere. Yeah, you can speak with her. She is one of our partnering agencies here for test prep, but we also offer the ACT, SAT boot camp, August, likely. This is a tentative date at this point, but it will be either August or September. They'll come back to our site and deliver an SAT boot camp. They have their signups, it's not with us, so please stay tuned for that. The sign-up is not accessible at this point. But many resources, check them out and see what works for you. And you can note on the bottom here, there are some test-free schools and test-optional ones listed as examples of many of the schools our students apply to. Yeah?
So you say you got two similar students applying to the test optional schools, one student passes, one doesn't. How's it here?
The statistics, you can check out the common data set for every college. I would say in general, when I've looked at them, it seems the overall is, it's almost a 50-50 of students applying with a test score and 50% roughly applying without. And then of those that get accepted, it's again, almost a 50-50. So it depends on the school. I don't want to make any claims that they don't need it. There are just, if they're not a great tester, and it's not going to prove to be advantageous to demonstrate that, and they're a test optional school, I would rely more heavily on the GPA, unless you're going to do a bunch of test prep and really super score and go for that.
They are at risk of being admissions. Two students equal, one with score going out, the test is getting soft.
Okay,
That's right, or experts.
okay, that's, you heard it,
That's one
straight
school,
from
that's
Embry
one
Riddle.
school.
Yeah, one school. They'll prefer a test score.
Oh, that's something.
No, I believe you. I believe you. Yeah, that's why we want the kids to have it if they need it. If it's in the mean score, by all means submit, right? If it's close to the average, I'm just saying there are some students that will test in the 900 and 1,000 range, and I don't encourage that submission. But they can consult with us and work through that to determine if they should or not. Or use your discretion. Common data sets are helpful. Mimi, would you like to say something?
No, when I typically recommend to the students that when I'm starting good testing, like
Yeah.
Hi, thank you. I'm really feeling that you are all so blessed to be in such good hands and to have so much guidance, because it's really a confusing system at current applying for colleges. But what I would say with testing, if your student has historically been good at standardized tests, it's something that they can choose to show off. It's a skill, like being a select athlete. If it's like that for your student, yes, they should do it and show it off. And when I look at a student to advise, should they try or should they not try? I usually look and see, well, have they historically scored at like an 80th percentile? Because these days you need, pre-pandemic, you really needed like a 90th percentile to be showy, and there's been some score inflation because students can choose to either submit or not submit. And as far as the common data set goes, it is interesting that it isn't standardized across the country. All colleges do not look at test scores in the same way. So it's on each family to individually investigate the colleges that interest them. And what I usually suggest, which Katie has been recommending, is use your phone and type in the words common data set and then the specific college. You get something that looks a lot like a tax form. It's maybe 20 pages long. But if you scroll down to about page 10 through 12, they list how many students of those freshmen who arrived last year reported scores. Of those accepted who showed up freshman year. They also list what the percentile rankings are. So you can look at that score and you can look at the 25th percentile for last year. If your students' scores are at that level or above, you would want to report them to that particular school. They'll be an asset. If they're lower than that, go score optional at that particular school, if the school allows that.
Thank you, Amy. Just as a reminder too, the standardized tests are widely accepted, either one, but students tend to do better on one than the other, which is why we've encouraged them to try both. There are students that sit in the threshold where they're about equal, but many students do about 25% better on one than the other. And I think it comes down to the format of the test, but also the way that the score breaks down. So you'll have the ACT breaking down the score into 4 components of science, reading, writing, and math. And then you have the SAT that's going to be 50% of a math score and 50% reading, writing. Yes? No. Yeah, no. We are just the SAT site. Yeah, at this time, sorry. Okay, so here it is one more time as a refresher there. You'll also be able to look into Naviance. It's really important to see our scattergrams that you can see previous history of our students who have applied with their given GPA and test scores. They'll apply and look at the scattergram. It'll tell them whether they were accepted or denied. I would say most colleges we have data on. Not all of them, of course. And then, as a reminder, it will be your responsibility as a family unit to send in those test scores before the application due date. And you'll do that by going into SAT's College Board website, or you'll go into ACT's website to do that. I think the price point is around $12. It might have gone up this year. But although we know scores, we're not considered an official site to send them. So colleges recognize them directly from the agencies. Okay. All right, I'm going to welcome Chris Scotty back out to talk tuition and college costs.
So as I'm sitting here and watching your faces, I'm seeing some, just show me the money. Show me how I'm going to pay for this. So I want to talk a lot about like examples of student experiences. I think that will shed some light, hopefully give just more insight on where students like experiences that they've had. I've been here for the last 3 years, and I've had my own experience as a student and have that as my lens, but seeing some of the students take charge is really important. I think that's part of this whole thing, that they have a huge role in this. And I'm gonna give some examples of that as I proceed with this presentation. But I want you to look at the average cost of attendance for a student living on campus, and some of it is astonishing, right? Especially the nonprofit private university after 4 years. That's a new Ferrari, right? But maybe not a new Ferrari, but still. As you can see, in-state is quite the better price point. And then obviously we're talking about out of state, 4 years, 182,000. I have, and speaking of students, I have a few, that were accepted to some East Coast schools. Now, when I look at our graph that shows where students are going, I was at the college night, and I noticed UW usually does, UW took the award for most students going. It was, but I didn't realize it was so much. We went to, Katie and I went to a conference with the Pacific Northwest Catholic schools counselors. They had the same. I think ours was over 30, right, for UW. And we've also had some, what we call, if you guys are not aware of this, WUI schools, right, the the Western Undergraduate Exchange, where schools like University of Utah, Montana State, I've noticed, and then my alum, I'm not trying to push this school, but Oregon State, they had more than they've had in quite a long time. I think they had close to 10. My colleagues gave me a hard time saying, "You're making it go there." I was like, no, I was not doing that. But the savings, I talked to, 3 of my work colleagues, all teachers, and I had all their students as, I was their counselor. They're going to the schools here, so and 2 of them were movie schools. So they're seeing that scholarship. If we're talking about tuition and scholarships, they're seeing the advantages of that. And not only that, one thing that actually told me today, just kind of said, I asked him, how's it going? He said, there's a big advantage with not only the WUI schools, but also the dual credit. So I know this may be a separate topic, but we're talking about tuition and saving money. And so if that's on the radar, for students, what I've seen is that students are looking. They're looking all across the country. They're looking at, applying to schools. But the reality is sometimes with that conversation, this we'll talk about here, that conversation tends to go, what about the finances? What about saving money? What about getting the best for what you're paying for? So that's a conversation that we have with your students here. We ask them. I think it's important to have that at home as well. To really kind of ask them, okay, what's your major? Or, and in really in a positive way too, because there is a lot of pressure. This is what we talked about as well. But the other pressure is when they're talking to their students, their peers, And so we kind of think, well, what's driving this? Are they going for the name? Are they going for the major? That all comes into this conversation. I think it's really fascinating. Because sometimes when you dig down and talk to them, and they kind of uncover what, their true feelings on where they want to go, it gets real, And I find that really rewarding to see a student that wants to go there for the right reasons. Tell me, I guess that we can raise our hands here. Just 42% of students graduate within 4 years' time. Does anybody fit that category? You graduate 4 years? Okay. Sorry, fit the next category. 97% of bachelor's degree earners graduate within 6 years. I wasn't 6, but I was just over 4. And okay, how many here? That's me. Okay, relax. You guys are scholars. Okay, another option, obviously, and we do have them. I've seen our map again. We had about, I don't know, 6 or so choosing the 2-year option. And I'm going to sound like my dad here, but that's a smart option as well. You're saving a lot of money. And by the way, what we found out at UW, that's their #1 choice, is getting students that are coming from community college as transfers. So they're kind of waiting. You know, when students come up to me too, I'll just be honest with you, when they come up to me and they're talking about, and you know, we're thinking that they're gonna have a huge list on, they got their application plan, and we're thinking they're coming in, you know, some come in over 20, which is fine, that's okay. But I'll never forget a student that I had come in and talk about, I asked them, hey, we're gonna meet for our college meeting. They're like, oh, I'm good, Mr. Scotty, I'm good, I'm already in. I said, yeah, I got accepted, I'm just looking for scholarships now. Okay, so there's not always this stressful road that students take. Some go in, you know, the road less traveled. We want to really exercise, we want to really let them know that, hey, there's no right way, there's your way. So I think that's important in the conversations that we have, especially the ones that I have. I find it, again, exciting. They're energizing us. We're kind of helping them make a decision that we've kind of already been through too. Question in the back. Sorry, you might need a microphone.
No, it's okay. Can you just give a general overview on the WUI schools?
The WUI schools?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Fine.
So, well, there's actually, and we can give you a link for that too, but there's over 200 schools, but here's the thing. A lot of them include some of the community college schools. The big ones though, like obviously, I'll take Oregon State for example. So Oregon State, for in-state tuition, is about $12,000, okay? Out of state is about $30,000. With the WUI scholarship, and you do have to qualify, there's a GPA requirement, that's about $18,000. So it's about 150% of the in-state tuition. So, and those schools, I can tell you some of the bigger schools. There's University of Montana, Montana State, Oregon State's in there. Other schools, you can talk, University of Utah. Yeah, University of Arizona is in there, however, it is only 2 majors. So this is a lot of, like I said, we have some faculty that have taken advantage of these offerings. It's something to really look into. That's a savings and scholarship right off the bat. You know, aside from, you know, a less expensive, what do you call it? It's tuition for the local schools. You know, Central Washington, some of the other public schools in Washington. But the WUIs is something, we call it WUIs, W-U-E. We have that, if you need that link, I don't think that link is provided, but we can send that link to you if you're interested. Yeah, question?
I don't know if you were going to talk about this, so I don't want to steal any thunder, but from my experience last year, that in-state tuition is not a guarantee. In some schools in the state of Washington, they treat it almost like a scholarship.
I don't know if you can hear me. So in-state tuition is not a guarantee, even if you're a resident of the state of Washington. I found that also with WUI schools, that is an actual application process in and of itself.
Right.
And not something to dispute. You can look at that school and go, that looks like a great application process, get accepted and find out that they're not offering you the WUI price because you applied later than the deadline in their early deadlines for those scholarships. And they're not necessarily scholarships per se, but they are an application process. And I found that at Eastern and maybe even Central, that an in-state resident, to get the in-state tuition, there was a separate application process than the admission process. I don't know if you were going to talk about that.
No, but I will, that's a great point, especially I'll speak to the WUI scholarship. that is an application process, and there is a deadline, and there is a requirement with your GPA. So a lot of students will not qualify. So you have to be, a good student. It's you're having to earn that scholarship, but part of that is getting that in-state. It's not in-state tuition, it's a little bit higher than in-state tuition, but yeah, great point. And they do mention that on the WUI application. Some of the deadlines are different than the other deadlines that other WUI schools are at. So you have to kind of read through that. They do give you enough time to do it. I know some of the deadlines are around, I want to say March, but it's really important to do that. And some of their their updates are not current. So calling in the school is really important. I will say that those ones I mentioned, Oregon State, Utah, and Montana, those are the ones that are the most popular. I think we've had, with all those schools, over 20 students go there. Now, if they got degree, I'm not sure. A lot of them have. And, one student in particular, I'll say, pick that over the other schools because it had more of a discount. So something to look into, okay? Yeah, good point. Each one is specific to each school. Yeah. Okay, and I already touched on this, but having productive conversations with your students about your financial situation. And we do this too. We talk about this just on the surface. About have you spoken to your parents? What do you think? I had a student come in, they got into Fordham at NYU, and it was exciting. You go through that process, you're like, oh my gosh, this is what you're thinking about. And then they come in again later on, oh, there's just got in back in the door. What do you know? Awesome, great school. But the reality was just not in the cards, okay? And that's okay. But I think that's sometimes the pattern that we've seen is that doesn't work out, and you have other great schools that got into having that, they did have that conversation, it was healthy, they were fine with it, they accepted it, and then off they go to a fantastic school. Okay. I'm going to talk about Regis real quick. This is an example I'm sharing because one of the liaisons from the leadership team at Regis, I had just visited last spring, about a year from now, and the representative that came in shared with me how they wanted, and Regis, by the way, Regis University, it's in Denver, they were wanting Jesuit students. They flat out said, we want Jesuit students. We want Bellarmine students. And I didn't meet him at that time at Regis, but he came here. He was going around the country promoting the school. They put in a lot of money. This is just one school, by the way. We're going to put in a lot of money and try to market it more. They were going to grow the student population, the enrollment. They were at 2,500. They wanted to get to over 3,000. They wanted to bring in more international students as well. Well, here's the figures that they gave me. They said it's about $46,000 for the tuition. Okay. Now, there was a sliding scale on their GPA. So he said with a 3.9 to a 4.2. So it's a weighted scale, right? 3.8, 3.9 to a 4.2. Actually, that number was 30,000 they were willing to give students. He flat out said, we want students from Jesuit schools, we want Bellarmine students. I'm like, oh my God, I wrote it down. I had to write it down for me. 30,000. So with the sliding scale, if you're down to 3.2, even 2.8, I think the minimum they would go is like a $22,000 scholarship, even if you're like 3.0 or below 3.0. So these were pretty great figure. You can see, guys, so it's 3.9 plus GPA. That extra 6,000 was another scholarship they were adding on. That was based on other items, not so much the scholarship, the initial scholarship. So, yeah, that was something that was, incredible. That was like fantastic, We didn't have any students really interested. We did have some students that went to Regis for, I think we had a couple of them go for athletic scholarship. I think one of my students went for athletic scholarship. But that and other Jesuit schools. So I guess my point here is when Jesuit schools visit, they're offering things and they want students to apply. Sometimes once you apply, you're interested in a school, they're gonna have some conversations about scholarship, need, financial. So I think it's, if students are really interested in pursuing that, they should be contacting the admissions counselor and finding out more about what they're, if they're interested in going. The jet tour that we have here in May offers a great time to speak to these counselors. We have over 15 at time. I know this has already happened with your students, but if they're interested in that, there's other avenues to go within that school. We've had, I'll just share that we've had some, students that were interested in going to these schools based on, ROTC, athletic scholarships. These students are doing some of the legwork on their own. They're not just, playing sports and then getting noticed here. They're having to go outside of their sport, playing their sport here at Bellarmine. So that's kind of sometimes what it takes to be noticed, that you're in playing at whatever sport it is, playing in select teams. Sometimes when you're traveling, you're getting a little bit more people noticing you, coaches coming out. So I think that's an important piece with athletic scholarships. The other part is creating profiles. If students are interested, if your student's interested in playing, then I would suggest reaching out to them. I've talked to a lot of students about filling out a questionnaire on the college website. That is where coaches can contact you and get in touch with you. The other part of that is contacting them through social media. So all these avenues are really important for, sports scholarships. Let's see. I wanted to share one other. I had a student that going through just about this time, getting ready for their senior year, who was going into a nursing program. They filled out over 20 applications, but they did a lot of legwork before that. They went and they went into some of the clinics and did some things during the summer. I've never seen so much emails to contact different schools asking about their programs. Well, long story short, because of all the work, he had countless scholarships available, including a full ride scholarship. I think that this student did a lot of the legwork to get there. He didn't rely on teachers, all the teacher recommendations or parents doing the work. This student did the work and it paid off. So what I'm trying to say is I think your student can do a lot. It shouldn't just be in the hands of us as moms and dads to do a lot of the legwork. The students can take responsibility. And there's a lot of great things that happened for him. And I think it was 2 scholarships that he got. One being a full ride scholarship, and very deserving. When I looked at all his colleges as well, this was a hardworking student. And so, let your students know at home that there's things that they can do. There's tons of scholarships out there, as you can see. Even if they're not an athletic scholarship, look at that, the trusted sites. You'll see some of those are going to be the national scholarships on the right-hand side towards the bottom. The washboard.org link is where you're going to find just the Washington scholarships. And we have some scholarships here. We just had the Cheney scholarship, where students, I think that was for $3,000, and we nominated some students for that. So lots of, there's a lot, I'm sure you know, there's a lot of them out there. Some students come to us pretty discouraged because there's so many, they don't know what to choose from. And remember too, they're gonna get scholarships based on their applications. Once you apply for schools, they're offered money through merit. They're also offered money through need. So part of that, I'm sure my colleagues will see, part of that, seeing what type of scholarship you get is just submitting their application. Yes, Karen, this is a slide for it. So you can see the 3 little tabs here: personal, your savings, investments, your 529 plans, obviously private loans, but as an institution, I mentioned this last night, but Harvard has a lot of money. They have a lot of money to give, right? They probably give money to all of us around the country. Merit scholarships, and then the school-specific scholarships. And then, of course, the federal FAFSA grants, work study, and loan offers. Okay, and then just the FAFSA release date, and it should return, I'm hoping, I think that's what they're saying, but we'll see. October 1st for the next school year, 25-26 academic year. More financial aid and FAFSA info is due to come in September, and that will be probably ready. We're back for senior parent night. And we will have 2 of our PLU representatives joining us. Okay. So I think that's it. Okay, so just scholarships, yeah. I kind of covered that already. You guys have the handout too. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of other scholarships here. There's just a host of, students that I've come across that have really been successful in pursuing that. I want to share one of my students, especially within the athletic, achievement athletic scholarship, just the last year, right before her senior year, she didn't know what to do because she wanted to play volleyball and she wasn't getting any bites. And that happens a lot, students are kind of that last year. It's happened multiple times. I really think it's a good idea to even if you haven't made a profile, they have like athletic profiles that you can do. Well, this student came to me and all of a sudden in the summertime she's emailing me, oh my gosh, this school's looking at me, this school's looking at me, and all on the East Coast. And she finally solidified one. I don't think it's ever too late to do that. I think pursuing that, if that's your goal, if it's athletic scholarship, if it's, being part of a club, your within your ethnic background or whatnot. Lots of scholarships are out there. One of my students came through here a few years ago. His mom told him, you need to apply for these scholarships. You're Italian. You need to look into the Italian scholarship. He said, okay, Mom. By the time he was done, he got $8,000. And it was multiple scholarships, but he was just applying for them. Sending out his resume and applying for them, filling out the application. I want to say about 3 or 4 scholarships. And he would just come in and go, I got another scholarship. Well, you got to pick your mom, right? So if you need any help and you need any, especially, speaking to your students again, we're always available for that. We don't know where the money is, but we do, like I said, I think it is really helpful that they're taking a part in the process. It's never gonna just come to you. It's always gonna involve some hard work to get there, but I think it's rewarding. We're gonna open it up for questions.
You all have a green sheet. I want to make sure that we point this out. There's a green sheet that we give to our students when they come in to meet with us for the junior meeting. And that is the actionable steps that we have taken, as well as the ones that we'll continue to take. And just as a reminder, we are months out from application time. So we do start this process early enough that it allows you to take the baby steps necessary, and it doesn't have to be all done at one time and become very stressful. So be assured, some steps are already done, some are happening, and will continue through the summer. We'll conclude everything in the fall. So please, if you're feeling stressed, come talk to us. We'll try to talk you down off that cliff, because it doesn't need to be that way. It really doesn't. Yes. Yeah.
So, on the field of study, when you're selecting your university, like medical field, you can get transition out to a new job readily. But if you have like engineering field of study, do you tell them like which college, which university is the best place to apply? Because we just had a friend, his son graduated in UW for engineering, and he's asking me what's next. Like, Tito, what's next? Because I don't know, like, what do I do next to get like a job? Is there a transition assistance from that college that can help him do that?
At the college, they have a career center that will definitely help them navigate that process. Some schools we've visited even provide a wardrobe if you need it. If you're not suited for the interview, they'll help you. So they really get down in the dirt with the students as long as they advocate for themselves to access those services. They'll help them navigate the next steps of getting into a graduate program or a career path. A lot of times the schools that our students select are based, I guess one of the factors when they choose their school should be their career path, because a lot of students stay in the same location as the college that they end up graduating from. They're going to provide access to companies and resources and things in that area of the school that they'll already be interning with, possibly, or gaining access to because they're networked with the university. So that might be a consideration for one of the schools on your students' list. You know, what kind of access points do they have? What kind of networking do they have? That might be one of the things that you factor into your decision. We do help students kind of navigate, I guess, which schools might be good for them, but it really is something that we want and encourage the students, and you would as well, want to encourage them to do some soul searching to know what the best fit is for them. We can tell them what schools offer certain majors, and Naviance is a great tool to also help filter down those college selections, because you can put in, once your child determines, like, I want to be in a smaller school, or I want a bigger school, I want a state school, a private school. There's a lot of different filtering factors in Naviance that will help create a list for your student to and suggest.
Okay, so I hope this was beneficial for everyone. I hope you guys learned something new. I hope you know how to move forward and next steps. We did record this presentation, so it will go out for you to go back and review on your own if you would like. And if you have any individual questions, we'll be hanging out here for a few moments, and you're welcome to come up and talk to us. Otherwise, have a good evening, and we will see you all soon.